Postseason baseball is back in the hog pen, helping us break down the Fayetteville Regional as Arkansas's road to Omaha officially begins. Our good friend Andrew Ellis, he covers Arkansas baseball for Inside Arkansas as the host of the Bombastic podcast and one of the best in the business when it comes to talking hogs. Andrew, what's going on, man? I appreciate you taking the time. It's that time of year yet again, my friend.
It is, man, and it's always nervous. Right when I got on, I was like, man, it's a tense time of year. You know, fan bases, no matter how good or bad your season went, nobody feels super great. You know, some people have confidence, some people are excited. Nobody's like 1,000% thrilled. You know, I think these games just have a way of bringing out the worst in you, and so it's such a fascinating time of year. And baseball is such a big sample size sport, and it's always fascinating when it comes down to a small sample size. And so that's what we have, man. Should be a fun weekend in Fayetteville. Excited to see what the atmosphere is like out there in the Hog.
Yeah, it's going to be jumping, no doubt. Andrew, first things first, I want to get your take on the season that was for Arkansas. You know, you look at the overall record, won 43 games, 20-10 in SEC play, swept the team that actually won the regular season title, the Texas Longhorns in Fayetteville. Just overall thoughts, where you stand with this club right now. I mean, again, I know things in the SEC tournament didn't go the way you wanted, obviously losing to Ole Miss, but again, that's not the end-all, be-all. But just thoughts on this Hogs club. I know you and I, again, talked before the season started, and now we sit here, Arkansas, the number 3 overall national seed. Feels like it was at least for the regular season, was a successful season in Fayetteville.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you look at Arkansas's preseason, when we looked at the schedule, you know, the back half of the schedule is what everyone kind of looked to, where you had Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Tennessee, all right in a row to finish the season. And so that's kind of what we all had our eye on. And Arkansas's schedule in SEC kind of played out that way. Of course, Vanderbilt ended up being way better than we thought. But early on, you felt like you had some easier series, and then you went through your struggles late. The fan base did not respond well to that. They were not thrilled about the fact that you started so well and then lost some series there. The way I viewed it is you played some, average. You played South Carolina, you played Missouri, you played some gimmies there early and had to play the big boys late. I feel like it was really important for Arkansas to win that final series of the year against Tennessee, which pretty much clinched them a national seed, clinched them a good spot in the postseason. But it also kind of restored this fan base's belief in, hey, we can beat these other teams, in hell, Arkansas might have to beat that same Tennessee team again in the Super Regionals. And I think when you face the top teams in the SEC, there's a lot of confidence that comes from that. Facing the best in the country, finding out who you are. The Razorbacks have found out a little bit about themselves, maybe a little bit more than the fan base wanted to find out. Some questions with the starting pitching for sure, but I think Arkansas has grown from having to face all these top teams, and they've come out of the other end of that pretty well.
That being said, Andrew, let's talk the Fayetteville Regional. Of course, on Monday, we got the official field of 64. Arkansas, the number 3 overall national seed. Kansas, the 2 seed. Creighton, the 3. And North Dakota State, who Arkansas will take on in their first game, is the 4 seed. Andrew, your initial reaction to when you saw the field, or the regional, if you will, for the Hogs, just initial reaction to the draw that they got.
The year before you played TCU, there was we kind of knew in the moment was a good draw. Arkansas found a way to lose both of those regionals. They had a good draw, lost that one, had a bad draw, lost that one. And so at this point, honestly, we're just looking for Arkansas to win any type of regional they can. I think this draw falls kind of between those two, where I don't know if I'm looking at any of these teams and I'm like, oh, that's a team that nobody wants to face. Arkansas can't get past them. But I also don't look at either of these, Creighton and Kansas specifically, as cakewalks. I think Kansas, what they've done is really impressive. I'm impressed by their squad the more I look at them. I mean, the offensive numbers kind of jump off the page to you. Will they be a little bit happy to be there? Has Kansas faced an atmosphere like Arkansas this year? I don't think so. I definitely don't think Creighton has, although, of course, they play in a pretty cool venue themselves. I think it's a pretty cool, it's a cool regional. It's one that Arkansas should be able to handle, but I'm certainly not overlooking these teams by any means.
And you mentioned, Andrew, at the top of the show that the anxiety a little bit, every fan base has it, obviously, but I feel like for Hogs fans, there's an extra level. There's like another level of nervousness and anxiety because of what's happened the last 2 years. And I think that's going to be a storyline going in the weekend. Obviously, can the Hogs get over the hump? I don't know that it's really, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like the team probably is thinking that way because it's so many new guys. They're not trying to rectify the past transgressions of the previous year's teams. It feels like it'll be more the fan base on edge, especially, say, the Hawgs are down 1 or 2 nothing early or something like that. Like, do you feel that same way where it's just like it's everybody's going to be on pins and needles? It's almost not like hey, let's go attack and go win this thing. It's like, please, dear God, don't mess this up again.
Yeah, it's bizarre where, you look at Arkansas's home record and hell, you see the venue and you're like, oh yeah, Arkansas's good at home. They always are good at home, but in the postseason, it's kind of gone against them the last couple of years. That crowd that's super amped up and super ready to cheer you on can turn into a tense and nervous crowd. And the players certainly feel that. And so to your point, a lot of new faces that I'm sure aren't sitting there thinking, oh man, I hope we don't, choke in the regional again because, they weren't there for it. But they certainly feel that from the fan base, and they've gotten their fair share of questioning from the fan base and the fans kind of wondering, is this team good enough? Do they have the pieces? When you're at a place like Arkansas, I don't think that pressure ever really goes away, regardless of if, hell, Tennessee won the national title last year. Their fans hate their team. They're constantly complaining about Tony V and stuff. And so I think it always is kind of there. And I think this weekend, those players, if they didn't feel it already, they will this weekend. But I do think if you look at this Arkansas team on paper, they're more equipped to deal with that. And I also think mentally, I like what I've seen from this Razorback team. They've been in a lot of close battles with really good teams. They found a way to dig deep and win those series. I mentioned the Tennessee series a couple of weeks ago. If you can find a way to win that series in that type of situation, you should be able to beat Kansas. You should be able to beat Creighton. You should be able to handle the pressure of the postseason. And so we'll see who kind of steps up and answers that challenge. But the players, if they haven't felt the pressure, certainly will very soon.
Andrew, in regards to a scouting report of the regional, I'm sure you've done some research on these 3 teams. Is there one of the 3 or multiple that you feel like could give the Hawgs a challenge? Again, there's going to be upsets all across the college baseball landscape this weekend. There's going to be surprises, no doubt. Anything we should know from your perspective about North Dakota State, who Arkansas gets on Friday, or really the rest of the field? I know you kind of touched Kansas has had a great year, been a big surprise. Creighton is actually located there in Omaha, so they're trying to kind of make it a home trip and make a magical run, if you will. But when you look at the field, what stands out to you specifically? Is there one team, or are there multiple facets of multiple of these teams that you feel like could give the Hogs some trouble?
I think each team obviously brings what they bring to the table. I think Kansas is the only team in this regional that has anything close to the offensive firepower that we see from Arkansas, which it's crazy because the last time I was talking to you before the season, we were kind of like, is Arkansas going to have that firepower? Are they going to really take that step offensively? And I think they've cleared up some questions there. Kansas, they've hit 100 home runs on the year. They've got 3 monsters at the top of that lineup. I think they definitely have that flash that makes you nervous, especially for an Arkansas team that has had some questions with the starting pitching. I like Arkansas's pitching depth. I don't think any team has the depth that Arkansas has on the mound. But I look at Kansas, and I should have written down the cat's name. Their Friday night starter is like, a lot of teams come in with 2-3 arms, and they're all kind of the same. The difference between Kansas's ace and their number 2 is pretty stark. And so it's going to be interesting to me to see, do they kind of do that chess move of, well, we're going to throw our number 2 against Creighton and then maybe save our guy for the game 2. I remember TCU did that with Nick Lodolo against Arkansas back in the day. They were the 3 seed in the Fayetteville Regional, and they were like, F it, let's just save our ace for the region, the 1-0 game. And it worked out. Arkansas ended up winning the game, but it was a 2-1 game. It was close and competitive. I'm interested to see what Arkansas does from a pitching standpoint too. Not that it matters a whole ton, because it's not like Arkansas has a Hagen Smith type of guy this year. But will we see Zack go game 1? And so if Kansas has to use their top arms, because they have a really good bullpen arm with 7 saves, ton of strikeouts as well. If they have to use some of those arms against Creighton, I think it lines up really well for Arkansas. But I look at the firepower that Kansas has and some of those frontline arms. In one game, in a 1-game situation in which this postseason, every game matters a lot. I definitely don't love that matchup with Kansas. I think Creighton's pretty well-rounded. They don't have a ton of weaknesses, but I think overall they haven't seen a team as well-rounded as Arkansas, and they certainly haven't seen an atmosphere like this. Kansas scares me a little more than Creighton for sure.
On that note, Andrew, I'm curious, what do you think Dave Van Horn does? Would you expect them to go Zack Root on Friday, or do you think they'll go Gage Wood to save Root for the Saturday match? Like, how does Dave Van Horn normally play that?
So he's kind of gone all over the place. I remember back in the day when he had Blaine Knight, who was pretty much their guy. They threw him in the game 1 against Oral Roberts. They didn't save him then with Isaiah Campbell, where Isaiah Campbell was kind of their guy, and they didn't feel as confident about number 2, number 3. They saved Campbell for game 2. they've gone back and forth. Last year they saved Hagen Smith, and a lot of Hog fans say, well, we shouldn't throw off because we threw off last year and it didn't work. And I'm like, well, it did not work. Hagen Smith just lost a start. Like when Hagen Smith loses a start, your season's going to end. And so I don't know. I think ultimately with this Razorback team, there's not a huge gap between, like, Zach Root is a good starter that I feel confident in. The Razorback fans maybe don't. Gage Wood is kind of in that same ilk of a prospect, and Zach Root, there's a little bit more experience. I don't see a ton of difference. So I honestly could see Zach Root just throwing game one and just keeping it status quo. If Dave Van Horn were to call me, I say this on my show a lot. If Dave Van Horn were to call me, ask for my opinion, I would throw Gage Wood against North Dakota State just because from a stuff standpoint, Gage Wood throws 97, 98 consistently. I think North Dakota State would probably, not know what to do in that situation. Whereas Zach Root's a guy that changes speeds, will pitch backwards to guy. His stuff's going to be the same kind of stuff regardless of who he's facing. I feel like he's kind of equipped to pitch against good teams and bad teams, and he's pitched against everything. I think Gage Wood is who I'd probably throw and save Zach Root for that game too, but I'm also not going to lose a ton of sleep over it. I feel like Arkansas really just needs all their guys to pitch well. But the mentality I always have is if you can't beat a 4 seed with your number 2, you probably don't deserve to win your regional. Like, honestly, and we'll see if Arkansas has that mentality. But in terms of Dave Van Horn and what he does, there's not a foolproof, like, set precedent of like, oh, I'm going to do it. You would think with a guy like Dave Van Horn, he probably is by the book. He's really not. Sometimes he'll mix it up due to matchups. I haven't looked at what North Dakota State does against lefties and stuff like that, but that's what they're going to be looking at, and that's kind of what they do. They take it game by game. Each decision kind of is its own. There's not a real precedent.
Andrew, if Arkansas is going to do something it hasn't done in a few years, which is get out of its own home regional, what's the key or keys for you? Again, I know in baseball it's kind of the same every weekend, right? Pitching, situational hitting, play good defense. But is there anything for you look at and say the Hogs need to do this to punch their ticket to the Supers?
Well, for one, I mean, they've got to hit. I mean, of course, like you said, just everyone always thinks that's a situation unique to their team. They're like, oh, we got to a postseason game and we lost because we didn't hit with runners in scoring position. I'm like, that's every level of baseball with every team that gets eliminated in the postseason. Your season ends when you have a game like that. So, of course, you got to hit. And I've alluded to it a lot, but I think it's the starting pitching. I mean, when you look at this Razorback team on paper, you look at the national rankings, they're top 15 in batting average. They're top 15 in home runs. They're top 15 in team ERA. They're top 15 in strikeouts, top 15 in walk rate, top 15 in whip, everything. Like, you look on paper at a 40,000-foot view and you're like, man, this team checks all the boxes. The starting pitching, weirdly enough, which coming into the year, we thought Arkansas might have one of, if not the most complete rotations in the country. I mean, we thought Zach Root was a guy they could count on. Gabe Gackle was supposed to be, the prospect of the future and everything, which, by the way, he's returned to form a little bit in a bullpen role. But I think it's got to come from that starting rotation. You have to get some semblance of stability and, something you can rely on. Zach Root checks all the boxes. I mean, he has the stuff. He throws a ton of strikes. He's got experience. He's pitched in the postseason before. We've seen him pitch well against good teams. Hell, 3 weeks ago, he threw 8 scoreless innings against Texas. He needs to be that guy for Arkansas, give them that stability and be more of a just steady factor for them. And Gage Wood, who Arkansas hasn't seen a ton of this year. He missed 7 weeks with a shoulder injury. He's as electric as any right-handed arm in the country. He's a guy that I can't wait to see on this stage because he has that type of fire. He's an in-state kid too, and I mean, nowadays in college sports, in college baseball in particular, in-state kids aren't something you hear much about. Gage Wood is one of the few on this Razorback roster, and it means a lot to him to pitch for that Hog with the name on the front of his jersey. He's gonna be a fun guy to watch this postseason. I'm looking at both of those guys. Everyone always says you need 3 aces if you want to go to Omaha. It's not really true. We see a lot of teams go to Omaha kind of piecing it together. And Arkansas, by the way, has done a great job at piecing it together with their bullpen. They have some depth. They have a guy like Gackle. They have Christian Fouch. Aiden Jimenez has been good. Will McIntyre. They've got some experience in the bullpen, and they've been able to overcome some bad starts from their starting pitchers a lot. In the postseason, I don't think you can make a living doing that too much. I think Gage Wood and Zach Root need to kind of step up and give them a legitimate 1-2 punch if this team's going to keep playing through the mid-June.
Andrew, I got to ask, looking ahead, thoughts on the road to Omaha outside of the regional for Arkansas, assuming they get out of their own regional. You match up with the Knoxville regional. We could get an Arkansas-Tennessee rematch at Baum-Walker, also West Virginia in that region, I believe Wake Forest as well. Again, when you looked at the bracket, first things first, Arkansas is going to take care of their business at home. But, knowing you've got the home path to Omaha potentially. Just what stuck out to you and your overall thoughts on the draw and a potential Arkansas-Tennessee rematch at Baum Walker?
I mean, we all kind of felt like it was a possibility. And hell, you're looking at the projections every day. And I think D1 Baseball was all over it for about a week now. They've been saying, I think it's going to line up with Arkansas and Tennessee, whether it's 215, 314, whatever. And so Hog fans are kind of bracing for this. No Hog fan that I've talked to wanted it. Of course, Arkansas did literally just beat Tennessee in a series 2 out of 3 at Baum Walker Stadium, which would be the exact same task they're getting dealt here in a week. So I guess you should have some level of confidence, but Tennessee feels like that team that's underachieved this year and is way more talented than their record shows, than their standing shows. Ole Miss, weirdly enough, who, by the way, just beat Arkansas and Hoover, went on a great run to end of the season. I thought that might be a team Arkansas would face. I would have much, much preferred face that Ole Miss team because I don't feel that way about them. We're like, oh, they underachieved. Like, I feel like Ole Miss kind of did what they were supposed to do this season. They're about as good as their record shows, frankly. Tennessee, it does not have a cakewalk regional by any means. I mean, Wake Forest is a program that knows what they're doing in the postseason. West Virginia is a sneaky test there as well. I imagine Tennessee has the talent, has the dudes to get out of that regional. Arkansas scored 8 runs against Liam Doyle a couple weeks ago, which is an amazing feat in and of itself. And I know he's had his struggles here lately. I wonder, I'm like, could Arkansas do that again, really, in the postseason? So I think that's probably part of why Arkansas fans have a ton of pause with that matchup is like, you did it in a way that it's like, are you really going to do that again? You could have worse draws than having to beat a team that you've already beaten once in the postseason. But I don't think there's any Hog fan that was thrilled about that matchup necessarily. But at the end of the day, it's going to draw in eyeballs. It's going to draw in ratings. Tony V versus DVH in the postseason. I mean, that's the stuff you dream about. The NCAA selection committee, there was a reason, by the way, if you watch the selection show, these were the last 2 regionals that they showed, and it didn't make any sense. When you're doing a selection reveal, why would you finish with the number 3 overall seed and the number 14 overall seed? They knew what they were doing. They knew this was going to definitely, people were going to start drawing some attention there and start noticing, oh, wait, we got a good matchup here. It would be a really fun one. I can't imagine. I mean, the atmosphere was good a couple weeks ago. I think we've seen some great postseason atmospheres at Baum. I think that would be on a completely different level. If you had Tony V and Tennessee, the defending national champs, come to town for a postseason series, hopefully the weather holds off. I'm already fired up thinking about that. Of course, like you said, got to take care of business, but we would, Hog fans, as nervous as they are, would talk themselves into it very easily. If Tony V came to town, it would be a madhouse here in Fayetteville.
It's going to be a lot of fun. The road to Omaha officially beginning for the Hogs. Andrew Ellis of Inside Arkansas, the Bombastic Podcast. Again, make sure you give him a listen. Does a heck of a job. Andrew, let folks know where they can check out all of your work and everything I just mentioned.
Yeah, man. So we got a lot going on over the Inside Arkansas YouTube channel, covering everything, football, basketball, baseball, of course, a lot of baseball going on. But we had a basketball announcement yesterday. Shout out to my guy, Curtis Wilkerson, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Curtis.
Happy birthday, Curtis. There you go.
Happy birthday to Curtis. He is as good of a basketball guy as you will find in the country. So if you are a basketball fan, we've got a lot of that going on at Inside Arkansas. Our YouTube channel, I would say, is the easiest way to keep up with what we have going on. You can find our podcast. My podcast, the Bombastic Podcast, is our baseball show. You can find that wherever you get your podcast. But Inside Arkansas YouTube channel, we've got a lot. It's a lot going on over there, and so looking forward to cranking out some good postseason content, which may be featuring Chris Phillips if we go to Omaha. We can get a little. We can get a little crossover, a little home and home.
Dude, I'd be honored, my guy. Again, appreciate you, Andrew, taking the time. Excited to watch the Hogs this weekend, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on as always, man. Looking forward to it.